Hi, I'm Sierra. I'm the video specialist here at Auto Robotics. Today I'm here to teach you how to shoot HDR photos with your EVO II aircraft and also how to stitch them together in post-production. I'd like to begin with a little bit about HDR for those who might not be familiar. HDR stands for High Dynamic Range, and dynamic range is the difference between the lightest lights and the darkest darks in your image. Having an HDR image is really useful because you have a lot of latitude when adjusting your exposure. The process of actually creating an HDR image is taking photos at multiple exposures and then stitching them together into one that retains all of the information for your exposed highlights, midtones, and shadows. Now let's take a look at the process of actually taking an HDR image on your EVO II aircraft. Once you're in the Auto Explorer app under the camera view, we're going to pull up our settings at the bottom of the screen. Our first option is image size. I was recording on our 8K aircraft, so I would select the largest size that I could, which is 8,000 by 6,000. Once you've selected that, we're going to go into our photo mode setting right next to it, and you can see that under AEB, you have the option of taking 3 to 5 photos. AEB stands for Auto Exposure Bracketing. It sets the camera to burst mode and adjusts the ISO and shutter speed to capture photos at different exposures. I usually select 5 photos because I like the extra stops of exposures that I'm getting with that, but you can do 3 as well and get a good result. And for our photo format, I always recommend shooting in RAW. It gives you the most leeway to work with in post-production and saves the most information for you. Before I begin, I'll select my object of interest, which is the mountains, to make the autofocus engage, and then click on the shutter button. You can see that it automatically takes those 5 photos for you. This process does take some time, so just be aware of the wind or any motion in your shot, because pictures are harder to stitch together in post-production if the compositions aren't aligned. Moving on to the process of actually editing these photos, I've opened up Adobe Lightroom on my computer, and you can use Photoshop as well, just a quick reminder. You can see that I've imported my 5 bracketed photos, and you can do that just by scrolling down to the left-hand corner and hitting import. So now we want to stitch these 5 photos together into one HDR photo. To do that, we'll highlight all of them, right-click, scroll down to Photo Merge, and over to HDR. It will then automatically generate a preview for you so you can see what the photo will look like. All right, so once that preview is complete, we're going to go ahead and click Merge. So we're going to go over to the Develop tab in the top right corner. While it's being completed, we'll look a little bit at the exposure for our bracketed photos to see what's going on. For the first photo that the camera took, it's exposed for the highlights. If we look up at the top at the mountains and the clouds, that is properly exposed. It contains a lot of detail, it's sharp, and that will carry over to our final photo. If we look down in the shadows where the trees are, it's really underexposed and there's not a lot of information there. So we're really only using this first photo for the exposure of the highlights. In contrast, we'll look at the 5th photo, which is exposed for our shadows. Looking at the same area of the trees, we can see that this is now properly exposed, contains a lot of detail. It's really just using the information for the shadows in your 5th photo. It looks like our HDR photo is complete, so let's take a look at that. Now we can see how the computer has stitched together the exposures from all 5 photos and kept the information in our highlights, midtones, and shadows for us. If we go over to our side panel here and adjust our exposure, we have a lot of room to come down lower or higher and still retain information throughout the image. If we look at the black slider down here, when we bring it up towards 100, you can really see how much detail this file contains because it doesn't automatically blow out the shadows. It still has information to work with, which is really, really helpful. So that's our finished photo. You can see really how easy it is to edit HDR photos, stitch them together. It's very simple, very quick, and it provides you with a lot of latitude when you're adjusting for exposure. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like or subscribe on the channel, or comment down below any additional questions you may have. Thanks for watching.